page 16 in your prayer book, you'll see the translation of the Hebrew text that I'm about to sing. The first part is just a call response part that I sing Zamru and you sing Zamru back to me. Some of you already know this. And Zamru just means let's sing. Let's sing. But you can see in the translation, it's so beautiful. It says it's about a lot of the musical instruments that we're so fortunate to have with us tonight. Sing praise to God with the lyre, thank you. And the melodious song. Even with the blast, it mentions the shofar and the blast of the horn. It's just a beautiful text about, and let the river clap their hands. That's so beautiful. And the mountains sing joyously together. It's just a beautiful piece of text. And we're gonna sing it.
It's actually one of my very favorite things about Cantor Addie, is that anytime if you're up here with her and you're not singing, she's like, sing! You should be singing with us. So it's like the perfect fitting song that all of us should be singing.
Zameru,
Zameru.
And feel free to add harmony. Zameru,
Zameru.
Zameru.
love that feeling of the idea of song welcoming us all in together, like as if we're welcoming royalty into the room. Shabbat is like that moment where we forget all of the worries of the week. We forget about the work we're doing to try to change the world, and we act like we're in the presence of royalty. We act as if it's the world that we want to inhabit already. And on this Shabbat in particular is a special Shabbat. It is reproductive rights Shabbat. And so we imagine that we are in a world now already where all people are fully in control of their own bodies. Reproductive rights Shabbat takes place annually on the Shabbat when we read Parshat Mishpatim, the Torah portion that Theo Jacoby and Alice Hoffman will teach about tomorrow, because this portion contains the verse that's commonly used as the foundation of Judaism's approach to reproductive health, rights, and justice. In this portion, in Mishpatim, the Torah teaches us that abortion is not only permitted, but in cases where the woman's life is threatened, it is required. So, as we begin Shabbat, we imagine a world in which all female-identifying people have access to health care, including birth control and abortion, have complete control over their own bodies, and therefore are able to participate fully in the world of politics and the world of daily life in all spheres. So we begin to welcome Shabbat by lighting the Shabbat candles, and we experience that liminal moment as we light the candles, and we invite up the families of Alice Hoffman and Theo Jacoby to help us light the candles. And as they're lit and we gather in the light, we feel like we're entering into that world that we want to inhabit.
So one brave soul will take the candle, the lit candle, and start the lighting. And maybe Theo, you'll do one candle and Alice will do the other one. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lecha tikneh shel Shabbat. Thank you.
So I like that, the idea of royalty. It's I've always had a problem with royalty because I don't know much about royalty. But I think the closest that I've ever experienced it, and it's probably the wrong thing to say in America, was the first time I ever saw a president. And I was so excited. Who here has seen a president before in person in 3 dimensions? Nothing like it. And I flew across the country, and I took a red eye, which was an awful experience. But I got to the place where the president was going to speak hours ahead of time, and there was this just palpable energy as the room filled up, and everyone just had to see this person. And finally, when the president walked in, you could feel this, they're here. And so I think that, when you talk about that royalty of that time, that's why we start with those candles. The Kabbalists, they talk about the bride coming in, but that's the sense that we're trying to get to. It can be a challenging thing to do with time. It can be easier to do with figureheads that we've stuck titles on. But we're trying to put a title on top of time. Just take a big, deep breath in. Feel where you are now. If you're home and you are comfortable on your couch or wherever you are, take a big breath in there, maybe another glass of wine. And feel yourself get prepared to have that excitement as if that royalty is about to walk in the room and you have been waiting to experience this. We are now on page 20 with L'chadodi.
יאללה לילה דודי, יאללה לילה לקראת קלה, יאללה לילה בני שבת, לקבלה. יאללה לילה דודי, יאללה לילה לקראת קלה, יאללה לילה בני שבת, לקבלה. שמור וזכור בדיבורך, השמיענו אל חמך. אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, לשמו תפארת ונתינה. יאללה לילה דודי, יאללה לילה לקראת קלה, יאללה לילה בני שבת, נקבלה. יאללה לילה דודי, יאללה לילה לקראת קלה, יאללה לילה בני שבת, נקבלה. לקראת שבת לכו במלחה, כי מקור הברכה. מראש מקדם מסופר, סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה. יאללה לילה דודי, יאללה לילה לקראת קלה, יאללה לילה בני שבת, נקבלה. יאללה לילה דודי, יאללה לילה לקראת קלה, יאללה לילה בני שבת, נקבלה. התעוררי, התעוררי, כי באורך ומאורי. אורי, אורי, שיר דברי, כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלת. יאללה לילה דודי, יאללה לילה לקראת קלה, יאללה לילה בני שבת, נקבלה. יאללה לילה דודי, יאללה לילה לקראת קלה, יאללה לילה בני שבת, נקבלה. בואי בשלום, עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובזכרונה. תוך אמוני עם סגולה, בואי חלה, בואי חלה. יאללה לילה דודי, יאללה לילה לקראת קלה, יאללה לילה בני שבת, נקבלה. יאללה לילה דודי, יאללה לילה לקראת קלה, יאללה לילה בני שבת, נקבלה.
We are on page 24 for Shalom Aleichem.
שלום עליכם, מלאכי השרת, מלאכי עליונים, מלך מלאכי המלאכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. לכם בשלום, מלאכי השלום, מלאכי עליונים, מלך מלאכי המלאכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. יא לילה, יא לילה, לילה, מלאכי עליונים, מלך מלאכי המלאכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. צאתכם לשלום, מלאכי השלום, מלאכי עליונים, מלך מלאכי המלאכים, הקדוש I was right before the service, I was speaking with Rita, and I was telling Rita, oh, I feel a little bit tired today. I was starting to kvetch. But I said, and I knew that as soon as I started singing, everything would change. And so I invite the same for you. Singing is such a medicine for whatever ails us. So use this opportunity. There's not enough opportunities for community singing in our world. So this is one of them. So let's use it.
You gave a teaching once on that you made a deal. Remember when you made the deal with us that if we all sing as loud as we can, no one will be heard because we'll all be heard?
Oh yeah, that's
Would you explain that deal? Because I think we need that deal.
It's just if you feel shy, and God forbid that anybody ever told you can't sing, a story that I was just told, that's not true. But some people have been told that as children. But if we all sing together, no one will be standing out alone and heard by everybody. So if everybody just sings out, and it's such a great freedom and good feeling to let your voice come out. You can all do it, and we all do it together. The deal is that you won't be heard if we all do it together. I had a long way of saying that, but that's the deal.
You can also hum and no one would know you were humming.
That too.
So with that, with the waking up and the feeling better, that's kind of the first part of that service. That's Kabbalat Shabbat. That's like the spiritual stretching until you get to the actual spiritual workout. And so the Baruch is the actual when the workout begins, where the real prayer begins. And I remember when I was a child, I would pray with such fervor. I really meant it of what I was trying to do in the world. And then I got a little too logical as I got older. I'm like, well, am I just talking to myself? Maybe I shouldn't do that. Did it make logical sense? And so what I'm going to invite you to do as we open our voices up is just for a minute, is maybe put the logical side to the side and really let the prayer come out of you and just see what happens. So when you feel ready, we're going to rise and we're going to turn to page 28.
That's it, you sound good.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam
Seated. Before we say the Shema, we always recall that God loves us. And after the Shema, we always remember that we're supposed to love. And this week, Cantor Addy reminded me of a text from Midrash Rabbah that says that every blade of grass has an angel that whispers to it, grow, grow. And we were talking about how that is a form of love. And so I want to invite us, as we try to embody and imagine and feel God loving us, it's as if someone is whispering to us, grow, grow. And when we get to Shema, we think about who we need to pay attention to. And we think about who we need to love. And we think about what's the best way that we can whisper to them, grow, grow. Ahavat Olam is on page 32.
What a great love, what a great love, what בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם מאוד על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אלוהיכם אמת.
This week is the anniversary of the founding of the NAACP, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, started by 3 people in someone's living room. And when I was reminded of that, I couldn't help but think of the fierce advocate for women's rights, Margaret Mead's famous saying, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed people can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has." As we move into the Mi Chamocha, our song about freedom, we think about the people who are not yet free to make decisions about their own bodies. And we offer this prayer that is published by the National Council for Jewish Women. May we always remember that each person is created in the image of the sacred, endowed with the inherent right to autonomy and respect. May we create a caring and loving community and nation that reveres this dignity in each of us. May we understand our obligations to one another. We are all inherently holy and should be treated as such. May we find within ourselves the collective will to create a just society in which reproductive justice, the holy right to own the personhood of one's own body, to have or not have children, to raise any children in safety and community is foundational. May we walk together, endowing each other with strength, resolve, and courage to ensure accessible abortion care for all and toward a liberatory world. Mi Chamocha is on page 40.
Oh, freedom, oh, freedom, oh, freedom over me. And before I'd be a slave, I'd be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. Let's try that again. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom over me. And before I'd be a slave, I'd be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. Now with the Hebrew Mi Chamocha, Elohim Adonai, Mi Chamocha neder b'kodesh, Norah Tehilot, Osei Feleh, Norah Tehilot, Osei Feleh. ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו. ברוך אתה אדוני
Baruch Hu Shemo.
גאל ישראל.
in a moment, I'm gonna ask our team to bring the lights down, because we're gonna keep the lights down for a while. We're gonna begin with a healing blessing, and then slowly we're gonna move into Hashki Venu, which is a blessing for the evening.
Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storm. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storm.
As a congregation, we are praying for the healing of Rusty Holden, Yichziel and Yoch Ben Zipporah Brina, Catherine Salazar Poss, Rob Kurtz, Judith Schiff, Kyle Smith, Patrick Powell, Ella Rubenstein, Andrew Jennings, Allison Kramer, Jonathan Caddis, Sheila Kowalski, Elizabeth Strelke Mintz, Peter Logan, and Jim Weiss. If there's someone else who you are praying for who is in need of healing, either of body or of spirit, if you please share their name when my hand passes over you. Mishberach Avotenu v'Imotenu, Abraham Yitzhak v'Yaakov, Sarah Rivka Rachel v'Leah Hu Yivarech et Acholim. May the one who blessed our ancestors Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebekah, Rachel, and Leah, bless and heal those who are ill. May the Blessed Holy One be filled with compassion for their health to be restored and their strength to be revived. May God swiftly send them a complete renewal of body and a complete renewal of spirit. And let us all say, Amen.
Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storm. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storm.
And so now that we have the lights down, I'm going to invite everyone here, if you're comfortable, to just close your eyes and to get comfortable. If you are at home, also to just take a moment, and wherever you are, there's one thing that we can always be staring at a screen, and it's okay to close your eyes and just listen to the sound as we move into Hashki Venu. And I had a shocking realization earlier this week, was that there's a Hashki Venu I sing to my kids every single night, and we took it from Camp Newman, and it's filled our homes, and it fills homes across this country as it wraps us up at nighttime. And you never know where these tunes come from, but they feel like they come from Sinai. And this tune, which is going to wrap us up in this darkness, was actually written out of the soul of Cantor Addie. And I had no idea I was singing her tunes in my home every single night all these years. And so take a big, deep breath in. And Hashki Venu is about kind of letting go.
I didn't actually write the Hashki Venu part.
You wrote, but
The part that he's referring to is I wrote a bedtime shema that they
which
sing
leads
it-
into the Hashki.
that leads into the Hashki Venu.
They're married together.
I just didn't want to take credit where credit isn't.
Fine, I wrote the Hashki Venu part.
I'm going to give you the tune. At night we sing the Shema at night before we go to bed. Ashkifenu Adonai Eloheinu Leshalom, Leshalom. Ve'hamidenu Shomreinu Lechaim. Ufros aleinu Sukkot Shlomecha, Ufros aleinu Sukkot Shlomecha. Shelter us beneath your wings, O Adonai. Guard us from all harmful things, O Adonai. Keep us safe throughout the night, till we wake with morning's light. Teach us daily wrong from right. Amen. 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 Amen.
So on page 48, we're going to move into the Amidah. And we're going to keep the lights down for that. Now, if you really want to read out of your book, I'm going to welcome you to come up to the Shabbat candles. We have some light up here. That's actually the reason the candles are designed this way. The Shabbat candles are meant to be used. That's why they last so long. Hanukkah candles are meant to be like a neon sign. They're supposed to go quickly and just tell a story, and you put them in the window, but you don't use them. These are meant to be used. So if you'd like to read out of your book, come up here. If not, I'm going to invite you to rise and to please just open yourself all the way up as we move into the Amidah.
Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi yagi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu v'Imoteinu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagipur v'Chanora, El Elyon, Gomer Chasadim Tovim, V'konei hakol, v'zocher chasdei avot v'imachot, u'mevii geula livnei b'neichem, leman shemo b'yachava, melech ozer u'moshia u'magen, baruch atah Adonai, magen Avraham v'ezrat Sarah, atah kipor leolam Adonai, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע, משיב הרוח ומוריד הכהשם, מחכה חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו, לישני עפר, מי כמוך בגבורות, ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, נאמן אתה לחיות הכל, ברוך אתה אדוני, וחייך אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יכללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש.
please continue silently. And during the Amidah, our focus shifts to just what we are grateful to have in the world and to be in the world. And when you are finished, please be seated.
Artit, I'm going to ask you to bring the lights up for us. And everybody, we're going to turn in our prayer book to page 348. And we're going to sing a song here. It's called Ani Ve'ata. It means Ani, I or me. Ve'ata and you. Hebrew's a gendered language, so it's the masculine gender. Ani Ve'ata. And it was written in 1978 by Arik Einstein. What's the name of my co-cantor? What's his first name? Arik. There we go. Some people say Eric, but it's Arik, and it's the same name Arik Einstein.
And he takes credit for this song, too.
And it's he's still alive, but the song was written in 1978. That we're talking about freedom and people's rights. This is a great song to sing. And I just wanted to teach you because there's a couple of phrases in here that are standard phrases. Oops, thank you. Thank you. Standard phrases in Hebrew. I'm going to teach them to you right now. So if you look, you'll see Ani ve'ata on page 348. In the middle sort of paragraph that's indented, in the middle line of that indented paragraph, it says Zelo Mishaneh. So in Hebrew, Zeh means this, Zeh. Just say Zeh.
Zeh.
Zeh. My son used to say Zeh, Zeh when he was pointing at things like this. Anyway, Zeh. And lo, it means no, or it's just the negative. It could mean not as well. So Zelo, it's not. Mishaneh means it's like it's not important. Or here they translate it, I think it doesn't matter, but it's not important. Zelo mishaneh. So it's an expression in Hebrew, you could know it. Try saying this with me. Zelo mishaneh.
Zelo mishaneh.
Yeah, and that's like, you got like 15% of your Hebrew is right there. Zelo mishaneh.
With the hand gestures. This
Yeah,
is the other
Israelis,
30% right here.
Zelo mishaneh. It doesn't matter. And then there's one more I want to teach you at the end, the very last three words of the song. Another zelo, you see zelo norah. Zelo norah. Norah in Hebrew means like it's not terrible. It's not awful. It's not too bad. Zelo norah. Let's try that. Zelo norah. Also another very Israeli expression. But by the way, you might recognize the norah from a prayer that we do, because norah also means, I'm going to say awesome or terrible. It's from the Michamocha. What is it? Norah Tehilot, the awesome wonders, the awesome wonders. So it's the same word. Interesting that in Hebrew the word for awesome is also the same word for terrible.
And the peak of our high holiday service of Nila.
Yeah,
El
Yamim
Norah,
Noraim, Yamim Noraim, the awesome days, right? Anyway. Yeah, time of dread, right. So this song goes like this. Some of you might know it. Ani ve'ata neshane et ha'olam. We will change the world. Ani ve'ata az yavohu kfar kulam. Alnu et ze kodem lefanai. Ze lo mishane.
Lo mishaneh.
Ani ve'ata We'll try the second verse. Ani ve'ata nenaseh mehatchala. We'll try from the beginning. Yeh lanu ra ein davar lo nora. Amru et ze kodem lefanai, ze lo mishane.
לא משנה.
אני ואתה נשנה את העולם. Let's try that first verse again. You see it translated. אני ואתה נשנה את העולם. אני ואתה. אני ואתה. אז יבואו כבר כולם. אמרו את זה קודם לפניי. זה
לא משנה, לא משנה.
אני ואתה נשנה את העולם. We will change the world.
I actually had written something completely different to speak about tonight. My head was a little bit too much in the Torah. And then I looked up, I looked east, and have been deeply shaken by what's happening in Israel. And so I was hesitant to say it, but the more I read, I realized it wasn't a crazy thing to say because that's what most people are saying in Israel, is that Israel is on the cusp of a civil war. And there was one person, there's a lot of people who stuck out to me this week as I was reading. There's a man by the name of Yedidya Stern, and he's the head of the Jewish People Policy Institute, which is a think tank, and it's kind of it's an offshoot of the Jewish Agency. And what's interesting about him is that back in the 90s, 95, he was Bar-Ilan University's law faculty. And one of his students, when the country was heated in debate, assassinated Yitzhak Rabin. And he said this week that this is not just the closest, but we are closer now to civil war in Israel than at any other time. And you're seeing this commentary coming from former Chief of Staff and Defense Minister Benny Gantz, who's also talked about the possibility of a fratricidal war. The former president of the Supreme Court, Aaron Barak, has said that if this judiciary plan that is suggested to go through, it will be, quote, the beginning of the end of the Third Temple. We've seen statements from Ehud Barak as well, former prime minister. And what's important to frame on how to understand this is that this is not the first time that Israel has been on the cusp of a civil war. This is the fourth time. The first time is 1948 with the Altalena. Who knows the Altalena story? Some people know the Altalena story. The boat. You basically have, as right before Israel's about to begin, there's two different defense forces. There's the Haganah, which eventually becomes the IDF, and the Irgun. And they're not aligned. They're trying to form. And the Ben Gurion is in charge of the Haganah, and I'm blanking on his name right now. Begin is in charge of the Irgun. Thank you. And the boat comes over, and there's a worry that there's about to be a coup, which occurs. And the crazy thing is, this is right after the Holocaust, right after millions of Jews had been killed, where you would think the law which we would create after that point is that clearly no Jew should kill another Jew. And as it was sitting there at that point, Jews started firing at each other. 16 soldiers from the Irgun are shot and killed by other Jews on the beaches of Tel Aviv. The boat is sunk. But Israel pulled back, and civil war did not happen. Next time was the assassination of Yitzhak Rabin, which once again that line was crossed, where a Jew went and killed another Jew. You could also argue that the unilateral withdrawal from Gaza was the next time that we were right at the brink. Because for the settler movement, what they were doing, they were carrying out a commandment, a biblical commandment, but made the decision that actually we're going to rescind that because I'm not going to go to war with our family. And this state that we're in right now seems to be closer than any other time. I mean, you could say those other points, a line was crossed in the first two because a Jew killed another Jew. And what the conflict is about is that in the United States, we have three branches of government, each one keeping check of the other one. We can argue if it works well, but that's the intent behind it. Israel does not have three, it has two. It has Knesset, which is legislative, and then it also has the judiciary. And what's being proposed is really for the political side to come over, appoint judges, and then there will essentially be one section of government, and anything the Supreme Court says, they can just wipe away. And so in many respects, it would be viewed almost the end of a legitimate democracy inside of Israel. And that's why you're seeing around the Knesset, 200,000 people protesting. Now, there are some that say, all the protests you're seeing, it's the left wing, they're stirring it up against the right wing. That's not the case. Who here knows who Alan Dershowitz is? I wouldn't call him the most left wing. He was Trump's lawyer. He's very, very close to Netanyahu. And this week, he said on Israeli army radio that, quote, if I were in Israel, I would be joining the protests. He even said that if this goes through the way that it is written, this is Dershowitz, he doesn't know how he will be able to defend Israel. Now, personally, I do not believe a rabbi should talk about politics from the bima. I'm not David Brooks. I'm not Shields of blessed memory. It's not what rabbis do. We don't want to be the mouthpiece for the RNC or the DNC. What we talk about is Judaism and ethics. And anytime politics come and touches that realm, then suddenly you're in the rabbi's arena. And the rabbi's job is to talk about what does Judaism have to say about the moments that we're in when it touches those areas of ethics. So we have established who we are over the past few thousand years. And so there are three stories that I want to share with you tonight that come from our Jewish tradition. Some of them you probably have heard before. And I think they give some idea on the way we're supposed to approach and understand this moment of time. So the first story is the oven of Akanai, which you probably have heard because it's most rabbis' favorite story. And the story goes that there is a chief rabbi, I will be the chief rabbi in the story, in the Beit Midrash with all of the rabbi students, that will be all of you. And the chief rabbi is arguing over if this oven over here is kosher. The chief rabbi says, the oven's kosher. All the students say, no, it's not. He can't believe this. He's the chief rabbi, for God's sakes. He gets very frustrated. He goes, listen, you know something? If I'm right, look out that window. You see that tree? It'll lift out of the ground. So everyone looks out the window. The tree lifts up. They go, it's a tree. He can't believe this. He goes, fine, watch the river. It'll reverse directions. They look at the river, it reverses directions. They go, no, it's just a river. He's getting very frustrated at this point. He goes, listen, if I am right, let the walls of this Beit Midrash fall in on us. They begin to shake, and they fall at a 45-degree angle, which is interesting, because it's not down, it's not up, it's a middle ground. They go, they're walls. He's losing patience with this. And finally, at this point, he's just so frustrated. He's thinking, I'm the chief rabbi here. And he says, listen, if that oven is kosher, let the voice from God above prove that I'm right. They look up, and this big voice says, the rabbi is right. And this is the most shocking part of the story. The students then point their finger up and say, shut up! They yell at God. They say, shut up, and they quote the Torah, and they say, the voice is no longer in heaven. And according to rabbinic tradition, God's response is that God laughs and goes, my kids have beaten me. My kids have beaten me. It was never about just the chief having the voice or just having one voice. It was about listening to the collective, and not only listening to the collective, but listening to the middle ground of where the walls went. This is the foundation of how rabbinic Judaism is started, is that it's meant to be that debate where you can hear all these different voices, but it doesn't matter what your title is. It matters what the majority wants to say. Alana Stein-Hain, who is a teacher at the Hartman Institute, she said a few weeks ago, or maybe it was this week she said this, and I thought it was brilliant. She said, hate is an emotion and a feeling. Violence is an action. And speech is the thing right in between them. When Yitzhak Rabin was murdered, there was lots of speech happening about killing Yitzhak Rabin and assassinating him in order to save the country. It started with the words, and then it ended in the action. Right now, inside of Israel, you had earlier this week Ziv Raz, who is a former combat pilot, who put on a Facebook post to justify the potential assassination of Netanyahu. Now, later on, he recanted the post and he apologized, but he put that out there. And it's not just inside Israel that this is being seen. Our friends up north in Lebanon, Hezbollah, you may have heard of them, they don't love Israel so much. The head of Hezbollah, Nasrallah, he said in a television address this week on TV, he said it from a bunker in Lebanon. He said, quote, for the first time since the creation of Israel, we hear speeches from the entity's presidents and former prime ministers Lapid, Bennett, Olmert, and Barak, along with former defense ministers and generals who talk about civil war and bloodshed and say that there is no solution to the challenges posed by the new government. And then he went on to say that Israel, which is turning 75 this year, he said, God willing, it won't turn 80. Second story. And this comes out of the Talmud. This is from Gittin 55b about Kamsa and Bar Kamsa. And the story goes that there was a man who was having a big banquet, a big party, and he wanted to invite his friend Kamsa. So he told his servant to go get Kamsa. Well, the servant goes and he brings in Bar Kamsa, the wrong guy. And when the man sees that it's Bar Kamsa there, he can't stand Bar Kamsa. He looks at Bar Kamsa, he goes, get out of my banquet, I hate you. And Bar Kamsa, in public, he's embarrassed. He goes, listen, please don't embarrass me, let me stay here. He goes, I said, get out. I can't stand you. He said, listen, I'll pay for my own meal. Just let me stay. He says, get out. He goes, I'll pay for my table. He says, get out. Final plea, he goes, listen, I will pay for the entire banquet. Just please don't. He goes, I hate you. Get out. The rabbis say that it's actually at that moment when the second temple is destroyed. We usually say it was the Romans that destroyed the second temple. The rabbis say it was right there. Because Bar Kamsa then went to the emperor of Rome and gave up the Jews, said they were talking bad about them, and then Rome came and attacked. It started with the speech and the feelings and the emotions. And very quickly, it turned into the destruction of Jerusalem and a 2,000-year exile. The rabbis, they never blame the Romans. They blame us because of the way that we hated each other. That's the second story. Now, the third story is from a text which you all know. As I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil. For your rod and they comfort me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. Now, if you take those Hebrew words and you double click on them, and you can double click now with Safaria, and I used to have a program I would use a CD to double click, which is no longer useful. You can search those two words, and they're fascinating two words. Because one of the words is the rod that we are beaten with by our slave masters in Egypt. And one of them is the staff that led us out of Egypt to freedom that Moses carried and placed over the water. And somehow in the psalm, it's using both words. And then you see the pattern continuing throughout there. That I sit at the table in the presence of my enemies. Why would you sit at the presence? How would that be comforting? And you see this idea of these two sides throughout the entire psalm, and there's a place of peace. And it talks about God being with us in this valley. And what's going on here is that normally when we see that person as our enemy, they really are our enemy. But if we're able to look at them a little bit closer, and we realize that a rod and a staff, they're both inanimate objects, the question is, what do we do with them? And you're able to see it with the oneness. You suddenly realize there's a transcendent moment, and we're all connected, and we're all part of one. Now, Yossi Klein Halevi, he points out that there is actually no word for civil war in Hebrew. So this entire time I've actually been using the wrong words. There's a different word. Now, civil war is a war between civilians, between citizens. Doesn't exist in Hebrew. In Hebrew, it's Milchemet Achim, which is a war between brothers, which is very different. When it's a civilian, it's an other. When I see it as my brother and I'm actually able to look them in the eye, it gives it the ability to slow us down and to remember that that's actually my brother. When the Altalena is destroyed, we were on the edge of it, but we realized, wait, that's my brother. Even if you look at Menachem Begin, after 16 of his troops were killed when the Altalena was sunk, he got on the radio and he said, quote, "A war between brothers? Never." And they pulled back. That's where we must get to. Judaism has always been about being a tradition, which is about being together in a family, dysfunctional at times, but a family. It's a tradition that wants to hear everyone's voice. It's a tradition that wants the walls to sit at that 45-degree angle. It wants the mezuzah not up and not down, but right smack in the middle. It's all very intentional. And so for all of us, when we sit at this hour, which has never been more critical in my lifetime, which is hard to say, given Yitzhak Rabin, it's a reminder that this is not just something which is happening over there. Because this is about brothers. It's about our family. And so I know Rabbi Singer, he sent us all a letter a few weeks ago, encouraging you to write a letter. I'm begging you to write an email, to write a letter, to call our consul general, because we're part of this narrative. If you want to be a part of the Jewish story, you cannot step out of the Israel story. It's part of who we are. And it's a reminder that if we pull back and we can look at the other side as not the other side, but as our family, that's how we get closer to being a family. Can you hear us? So may it be God's will.
We rise for the Aleinu. Alleluia.
often on Shabbat, when we taste the world to come, we remember that it's aleinu. It's on us. It's on us to hold up the walls of the house. It's on us to remember that we are all family. And it's on us to remember that we're all created in the divine image and that all people should have the right to control their bodies. Be seated. We turn our attention now to those who have died. We particularly remember those who have been laid to rest in the last 7 days. Natalie Saltiel. And those who have passed in the last 30 days. Dr. Ann Molliver Rubin, Regina Rosenzweig, Max Maltzman, Harold Goldman, Tom Knight, Jerome Jacobs, Jay Howard, Armand Dan, Simon Montencourt, Margaret Dickman, Ann Singer, Amy Cohen, Joe Tulchin, Janet Haas, Lois Rhine, Frida Teitelbaum, Arnie Zahler. And we remember those whose yahrzeits we commemorate this Shabbat. Bessie Alperton, Andy Arick, Otto J. Beck, Ernest Benesch, Bess Berkeley, Joseph Blumenthal, Ariella Braverman, Elizabeth Caspers Peters, Linda Davies, Sufer Fruzan, Daniel Gallos Fuchs, Robert J. Gans, Joseph Gershony, Francis Glazer, Tanette Goldberg, Rhoda Haas Goldman, Abraham Gordon, Rob Giamant, Deborah Haas Eisenberg, Carl Hagans, Rose Harlow, Jean G. Hartman, Lily Hecht, Nettie Hester Wolf, Noreen Hoffman-Lupol, Harry Holtz, Murray Imber, Betty Israelson, Zell Khan, Francis Cantro, Maury J. Kessler, Beatrice Kirschenbaum, Joseph Hyde Levy, Edith Lewin, Edward Linder, Jeannie Lisker Bellman, David Alexander Lakshin, Henry Maltonfort, J. Peter Mark, Barnett Nathan, Ramsey Oppenheim, Adrian O'Toole, Edward O'Toole, Yoav Pantilat, C. William Paul, Manuel Price, Rebecca Prostakov, Robert Rosenzweig, William Rushikoff, Margaret Russell, Diana Schlosser, Judith Schneider, Sherman Shockett, Diana Shore, Barbara H. Smith, Emanu-El Spinrad, Alan Stein, Isabel Steinberg, Ann Teitelbaum, Andrew Tillen, Ruthie Wander, Rose Weinberg, Jeffrey Weissman, Allison Wells, Bobby Wilczek, Herb Wilczek, Shirley Friedman Zakin. We ask that if any of you have names of those that you're remembering tonight that were not mentioned, that you share their names as my hand goes around the sanctuary.
Alan Walk and Alan Branfman.
We rise as one congregation together to say Kaddish.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעלמא תברח חירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומייכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם עולמי עלמיה, יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו, לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דאמירן ועלמה ואמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה, וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום, עלינו ועל כל ישראל,
ועל כל יושבי תבל,
ואמרו amen. And we were going to sing Oseh Shalom here, but I see my buddy in the back of the room, and I know that this will make him happy. On page 322, we sing Ein Keloheinu. There is nothing like the divine presence in the universe. Some say God. Ein Keloheinu, Ein Kadoneinu, Ein Kamalkeinu, Ein Kamoshienu, Mi Eloheinu, Mi Kadoneinu, Mi Kamalkeinu, Mi Kamoshienu, Ire Eloheinu, No Del Adoneinu, No Del Malkeinu, No Del Moshienu, Eloheinu, Baruch Adoneinu, Baruch Malkeinu, Baruch Moshienu, Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Adoneinu, Atahu Malkeinu, Atahu Moshienu. We want to invite Alice and Theo to grab your Kiddush cups and come up to the bima. I believe we have a mic over here. We're going to, if we could just grab that mic for the both of them to share.
And I just want to thank the Hoffman and Jacoby families for sponsoring our Kiddush tonight afterwards, as well as make sure you take your program with you. Our Israel Action Committee has done it again. They consistently bring rock stars here. We have Brett Stevens coming on March 8th, so make sure you mark your calendar and register, because it will be a riveting time to hear from Brett Stevens, given where we are in the world.
And in a few weeks, we have our Purim Carnival on Sunday, March 4th. It's going to be a very good time. Look on the website and come join us. Here, I think you all want a book, don't you? I got it. Baruch atah Adonai,
Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav, v'ratzavanu, V'Shabbat Kodsho, Be'achava uvratzon hinhilanu, Zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit, Ki hu yon techila lemigraim kodesh, Zecher l'Yetziat Mitzrayim, Ki vanu v'acharta, V'otanu kidashat mikol ha'amim, V'shabbat kodshecha be'achava uvratzon hinchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh hashavat l'chaim.
It's Opus 2. So if you'll join us in the Motzi, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz te'avon.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.